today on Network Africa. Guilty as charged, the mastermind of the 2010 bomb attacks in Uganda's capital Kampala, which killed 74 people, is found guilty of terrorism. Then the United Nations Security Council ends more than a decade of sanctions, arms embargo on Liberia. Later, a UN agency uses satellite data to help Zimbabwean farmers maximize yields in extreme weather. Welcome everyone, I am Amarachi Ubani. The mastermind of the 2010 bomb attacks in Uganda's capital Kampala, which killed 74 people, has been found guilty of terrorism. Isa Ahmed Luyima, who is Ugandan, is one of 13 men on trial at Kampala's High Court. Out of the 13 men on trial, 5 are Ugandans, 6 are Kenyans, and 2 are from Tanzania. Kenyans Idris Magundu and Sulaiman Joronge were also convicted on terror charges. But another Kenyan, Sulaiman Mbutia, has been found not guilty of terrorism because of a lack of evidence. The Somalia-based Islamist militants group Al-Shabaab said it was behind the bombings in a screening of the World Cup final. The militants targeted Uganda as the country's army provides the largest number of troops to an African Union force fighting them in Somalia. Renowned Ugandan journalist Joshua Poro joins me now from the Ugandan capital, Kampala. Joshua, thank you for joining us on the program. Well, do tell us the significance of this decision by the court.
Well, if you realize, about 6 years ago, Uganda was brought into awe in 2010 when there were twin bombs that went off in the capital of Uganda, which is Kampala. Kampala has a population of about 3 million people, and this was at the height of the World Cup then. People were watching World Cup at Chadondo rugby grounds and, of course, in the Italian village when 2 bombs went off and killed a maximum of about 76 million people, but definitely injured so many more. So the trial that was taking place today was basically a follow-up to that bombing. And after the bombing, Al-Shabaab, which is a terrorist group, came out to claim responsibility that they carried out the attacks in Kampala to try and discourage Uganda from sending troops of the Al-Shabaab to Somalia. It is something that the case has been going on for about 6 years, but today finally it has come to conclusion, and we realize that 7 people have been convicted of terrorism charges, and of course those also include the 76 counts of murder. However, 5 people were acquitted of the murder charges, and that means they have also been acquitted of the murder charges. So if they have been acquitted, they walk free, 5, but the 7 have been sent to jail. Now, the presiding judge, Alphonse Winjdolo, did say clearly that anybody who commits murder commits a felony and has to be jailed for the rest of their lives.
Now, Joshua, how are Ugandans reacting to the outcome of the trial?
Well, of course, you know, when the bombs went off in 2010, the country was slow. Everyone was feeling quite very sad, and the mood was very somber. But you see, today, when Ugandans realized the ruling was going to be, the judgment actually was going to be delivered, every Ugandan went to social media to express, you know, what they're waiting for. We cannot pass judgment on these people. But still, if they're the ones, we do pray that, you know, the right judgment is passed. If you notice today in Kampala, a lot of security deployment has been done. All over the streets there is police deployment, in malls, in public places. Everywhere you think you can go, there is police deployment. But of course, Ugandans are happy for just one reason. Judgment has been passed at the end of the day.
So is it disturbing to know that the perpetrators of this disaster are mostly Ugandans?
You know, the troubling part, I'm not so sure, because you see in every society there are rogue citizens. And when you come to a country like Uganda, we have a very big population which is of the Somalese origin. They stay in Kampala in a place called Chisenyi. They stay within our population. So knowing that these people are of Ugandan origin, of course, it's demeaning to our population, our community, to realize that our very own people would travel to Somalia, be trained by the Al-Shabaab, come back and kill fellow Ugandans. That, of course, makes you and begs the question that you should be careful with everybody, because you're not sure about what they are planning to do or what they have done so far. But, you know, it's not by surprise, because these elements are there. But just because of the stringent measures that the security systems have put in place, we are in position to combat these Al-Shabaab issues and send them out of our way.
Joshua, I know I have to let you go soon, but how could this case affect the role Uganda plays in Somalia's security?
I don't think so. If it was meant to affect the role that the Ugandan security systems is playing in Somalia, then that should have happened 6 years ago when the attack took place and Al-Shabaab came out, made a declaration and said they committed the attack so that Uganda could withdraw from Somalia. But since that did not take place, then I do not think that we are going to have any challenges now of the role Uganda is playing in the Somalia. That is an African Union role, not a Ugandan role. We're playing this role on behalf of the African Union to just ensure that the continent is a peaceful continent. That's what we're doing. So this, not in any way will it affect the Ugandan role in Somalia. Because, of course, you shouldn't forget one thing: the Ugandan government is getting some good amount of money from the African Union for that. So we are interested in keeping peace in the region, but we're also interested in the resources that come out of that. So I think we should consider both options and say, no, it will not be affected.
Joshua, thanks for joining us on Network Africa. Joshua Poro, all the way from Uganda. The 15-nation United Nations Security Council unanimously welcomed the end of sanctions and an arms embargo on Liberia. The council made the decision based on the West African country's successful stabilization since the 1989 to 2003 civil war that killed nearly 250,000 people.
The United Nations Security Council voted on Wednesday to end sanctions on arms embargo on Liberia, citing the West African country's successful stabilization more than a decade after a 14-year civil war that killed nearly 250,000 people. The 15-nation council unanimously adopted Resolution 2288. U.S. Deputy Ambassador to the United Nations, David Pressman, welcomed the move, saying the targeted sanctions on key individuals, the arms embargo, and a ban on the export of Liberian timber and rough diamonds had contributed to Liberia's stability.
Today, more than 12 years after the end of Liberia's brutal civil war and the Council's imposition of sanctions, Liberia continues to consolidate its progress, and the Security Council has determined that the criteria for lifting the sanctions have been met, allowing us to fully terminate the regime.
The decision formally dissolves the United Nations Liberia Sanctions Committee and panel of experts that monitored implementation of the arms embargo and other measures, most of which had been in place since 2003.
The United States will continue to work closely with Liberia as it consolidates its progress towards peace and stability. Today, we celebrate this transition and the role this Security Council has played in helping restore peace to Liberia.
The United Nations first implemented a type of arms embargo in Liberia in 1992. The Security Council last year lifted a travel ban and asset freeze on individuals deemed to be a danger to Liberia's stability. The United States lifted its own economic sanctions on Liberia in November. The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon also welcomed the end of sanctions on Liberia, calling it another signal of progress made by Liberia and the sub-region in maintaining stability.
The Secretary General welcomes the adoption today of Security Council Resolution 2288, which terminated the sanctions on Liberia. The Secretary General notes that targeted sanctions measures have accompanied the consolidation of peace and the rebuilding of state institutions in Liberia since 2003, and that these measures have been progressively adjusted as Liberia has met the benchmarks set out by the Council. Today's lifting by the Security Council of the remaining arms embargo on non-state actors further signals the significant progress made by Liberia and the sub-region in maintaining stability. The Secretary-General echoes the Council's call in Resolution 2288 on the government of Liberia to ensure that all appropriate steps are taken to establish the necessary legal and administrative framework to combat the illicit trafficking of arms and ammunition.
Concern about the use of Liberian blood diamonds to help fund the civil war helped inspire the creation of United Nations-backed Kimberley Process Certification Scheme, a program to certify the origins of diamonds that was set up in 2002 following devastating civil war in Angola, Sierra Leone and Liberia. The system has made it far more difficult to traffic in conflict diamonds.
When we come back after the break on Network Africa, a UN agency uses satellite data to help Zimbabwean farmers maximize yields in extreme weather. Do join us again.